Father's love, everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to read John chapter 11. So as always, kick back, relax. Let's see what we can learn today. Now a certain man was sick, named Lazarus of Bethany, the town of Mary and her sister Martha. It was that Mary which anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. Therefore his sister sent unto him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom thou lovest is sick. When Jesus heard that, he said, This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. Now Jesus loved Martha, and her sister, and Lazarus. When he had heard therefore that he was sick, he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was. Then after that saith he to his disciples, Let us go into Judea again. His disciples say unto him, Master, the Jews of late sought to stone thee. Goest thou thither again? Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours in the day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of this world. But if a man walk in the night, he stumbleth, because there is no light in him. These things said he, and after that he saith unto them, Our friend Lazarus sleepeth, but I go, that I may awake him out of sleep. Then said his disciples, Lord, if he sleep, he shall do well. Howbeit Jesus spake of his death, but they thought that he had spoken of taking of rest in sleep. Then said Jesus unto them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, to the intent ye may believe. Nevertheless, let us go unto him. Then said Thomas, which is called Didymus, unto his fellow disciples, Let us also go, that we may die with him. Then when Jesus came, he found that he had lain in the grave 4 days already. Now Bethany was nigh unto Jerusalem, about 15 furlongs off. And many of the Jews came to Martha and Mary to comfort them concerning their brother. Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him, but Mary sat still in the house. Then said Martha unto Jesus, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. But I know that even now, whatsoever thou wilt ask of God, God will give it thee. Jesus saith unto her, Thy brother shall rise again. Martha said unto him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection of the last day. Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection, and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believest thou this? She saith unto him, Yea, Lord, I believe that thou art the Christ, the Son of God, which should come into the world. And when she had said so, she went her way and called Mary her sister secretly, saying, The Master is come, and calleth for thee. As soon as she heard that, she arose quickly and came unto him. Now Jesus was not yet come into the town, but was in that place where Martha met him. The Jews then, which were with her in the house, and comforted her, when they saw Mary that she rose up hastily and went out, followed her, saying, She goeth unto the grave to weep there. Then when Mary was come where Jesus was, and saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying unto him, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. When Jesus therefore saw her weeping, and the Jews also weeping which came with her, he groaned in the spirit, and was troubled, and said, Where have ye laid him? They said unto him, Lord, come and see. Jesus wept. Then said the Jews, Behold how he loved him. And some of them said, Can not this man, which opened the eyes of the blind, have caused that even this man should not have died? Jesus therefore again, groaning in himself, cometh to the grave. It was a cave, and a stone lay upon it. Jesus said, Take ye away the stone. Martha, the sister of him that was dead, said unto him, Lord, by this time he stinketh, for he hath been dead 4 days. Jesus saith unto her, Said I not unto thee, that if thou wouldest believe, thou shouldst see the glory of God? Then they took away the stone from the place where the dead was laid, and Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me. And I knew that thou hearest me always, but because of the people which stand by I said it, that they may believe that thou hast sent me. And when he had thus spoken, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. And he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot with grave clothes, and his face was bound about with a napkin. Jesus saith unto him, Loose him, and let him go. Then many of the Jews, which came to Mary, had seen the things which Jesus did, believed on him. But some of them went their ways to the Pharisees, and told them what things Jesus had done. Then gathered the chief priest and the Pharisees a council, and said, What do we do? For this man doeth many miracles. If we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him. And the Romans shall come and take away both our place and nation. And one of them, named Caiaphas, being the high priest that same year, said unto them, Ye know nothing at all, nor consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and that the whole nation perish not. And this spake he not of himself, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus should die for the nation, and not for that nation only, but that also he should gather together in one the children of God that were scattered abroad. Then from that day forth they took counsel together for to put him to death. Jesus therefore walked no more openly among the Jews, but went thence unto a country near to the wilderness, into a city called Ephraim, and there continued with his disciples. And the Jews' Passover was nigh at hand, and many went out of the country up to Jerusalem before the Passover to purify themselves. Then sought they for Jesus, and spake among themselves as they stood in the temple, What think ye, that he will not come to the feast? Now both the chief priest and the Pharisees had given a commandment, that if any man knew where he were, he should shew it, that they might take him. All right, as always, let's do us a little review. John 11, as we see, is the story of Lazarus. We find out that Lazarus, the sister or the brother of Mary and Martha, were sick. So Mary and Martha sent word to Jesus, telling him that the one he loved was sick, Lazarus. And when Jesus heard that, it says that he said, This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. So, and then it says about Jesus loved Martha and Mary and Lazarus, but he still stuck around. After he heard about Lazarus being sick, he still hung out where he was for 2 days. And then after that, he said to his disciples, Let's go to Judea. And his disciples said, Oh, don't forget, those people in Judea, they tried to kill you. They wanted to stone you. You really want to go there again? And then Jesus says something interesting. He says, Are there not 12 hours in the day? If a man walks in the day, he stumbleth not, because he sees the light of this world. But if a man walks in the night, he stumbleth, because there's no light in him. Interesting response. And the disciples ask him about, Are you sure you want to go there? They want to kill you. Take that to the Spirit. It's very interesting what he says there. So after he said that, he said, Our friend Lazarus sleeps, but I got to go so I can wake him up. Well, the disciples didn't understand what he meant. So he said, well, if he's asleep, he'll be all right. He'll wake up. He'll be good. They didn't understand. And I find this interesting. A lot of times when Jesus speaks of what we consider the dead, he says they're sleeping. Something to chew on. We talked about this a little bit Saturday on After Hours Club, and I talked a little bit about that. But Jesus almost always refers to what we consider death as just sleeping. But to get his point across, he just tells them plainly, look, Lazarus is dead. And I think he did that just so they understood that he was dead in their eyes. But Jesus considers it sleeping. That's what I want you to notice. And he says, and I'm glad that I wasn't there. Because now, for the purpose, for the intent, that you might believe. So he's saying, look, Lazarus is dead, what you consider dead. And I'm glad that I wasn't there to keep him from dying. Because I know what you're going to see is going to make you believe. So let's go unto him. So then Thomas says to the rest of them, well, let's go with him. That way we can die with him. You know what I mean? They figure he's going to go get killed. He's heading right into the enemy camp, basically. Right into Judea. And then Jesus gets there. And Martha hears he's coming, so she runs out to greet him. But Mary stayed at the house. And Martha said to Jesus, oh, I wish you'd have been here. Then my brother wouldn't have died. But I know, even now, whatever you ask of the Father, he'll give it to you. So Martha, even though she was sad Jesus didn't come, save him, she knows. She says, I know, though, whatever you ask of the Father, he's going to give it to you. So Jesus says to her, your brother's going to rise again. Now Martha thinks he's talking about the last day. She says, well, I know he's going to rise again in the resurrection of the last day. And then Jesus says, I'm the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. You believe this? Now I think this is an important thing Jesus is saying here. Again, I think he's using the words dead just because that's the words we use so that to help us understand. But he says, even those that believe in me, though they were dead, by your term dead, the people's term, the world's term dead, he's going to live. And then he says something just amazing. This scripture has always, I love this scripture. This scripture is amazing. He says, whoever lives, in other words, if you're still alive and you believe in me, you ain't ever going to die. Do you believe that? Oh, I believe it. Jesus said it, so I believe it. But think about that. Think about the implications of what he's saying here. He's saying, if you're alive and you believe in him, you are never going to die. That is just amazing. And he's using the word die or death the way we think of die or death. Remember, he considers what we consider death as just sleeping. He don't consider that death. He changes to use the words death and die and dead because that's the terms there to get them to understand where he's coming from, because that's the terms they use for this state of the body that we consider death. He considers it sleep. And he says right there, if you believe in him, you ain't never going to die. He also says that in John 3:16, the most famous verse. Father so loved the world, he sent his only begotten Son, so whomsoever believeth in him shall never die. We're not going to die. Whatever true death is, we're not going to taste it. I believe that. I mean, I believe what Jesus says. And he says that right there. So I think what we consider death might not necessarily be death. Just something to think about and take to the spirit. But it's very interesting what he says here and the words he uses. He uses the fact that he's asleep, he ain't dead. And then he says, look, if you're alive and believe in me, you're never going to die. And if you have died or are considered dead, the way this world considers dead, you're going to live anyway. So Martha says to him, oh yes, I believe, Lord. I believe you're the Christ, the Son of God, that's come into the world. She says, I believe what you're saying. So do I. I ain't never going to die. We ain't never going to die if we live and believe in him. We might pass from this mortal realm and go into what the world considers death, but I don't think it's really death. I think there's a lot more going on here than we understand, as usual. And we don't even comprehend the Father and his ways. But it's something to think about. It really opens up all kind of possibilities as to what happens when this body quits functioning. Because there's obviously a part of it that never dies, the spirit. And I don't think it's just hanging around in the dirt, waiting for Jesus to come back. But again, take these things to the spirit. Let him reveal the truth to you. It's all about that personal relationship. Don't come on here looking for someone to explain everything to you. I'm happy to share what I see and am given, but you've got to do this yourself. It'll blow your mind. It'll blow your mind when you get a little glimpse of the big picture. And it's only a glimpse because we have no comprehension of the way this operates. So Martha said she believes. And she said that. She went back and she got to Mary and she said, Mary, the master's here. Jesus is here. He wants to talk to you. And as soon as she heard that, Mary jumped up and took off to go see Jesus. And a bunch of the Jews that were there with her, consoling them, comforting them, said, oh, she must be going to the grave to weep there. Let's go with her. Comfort her at the grave. She must be heading to the grave. Because she just jumped up and took off. Didn't tell them nothing. She just up, out. They're like, oh, well, she must be going to the grave. Let's go with her. And then when Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell down at his feet and said to him, Lord, if you'd been here, my brother wouldn't have died. And then Jesus, it says, saw her weeping, and all the people around her weeping, all the Jews who had come to comfort her, were all weeping. And then it says something amazing. He groaned in the spirit and was troubled. I've talked before about how I don't ever want to hurt the Father or upset the Father. And I've had people in chat say, well, you can't hurt the Father or upset the Father. What are you talking about? Well, the Father's love, just as Jesus is love. And we see right here that he was troubled. He groaned in the spirit. In fact, he wept. I would consider that hurting a bit. Maybe these aren't the right terms, but love feels hurt. Love don't respond to hurt like most people do. But don't think you can hurt someone who loves you. That's just crazy. Of course you can hurt the ones who love you. They're usually the ones you hurt the most. But like it says, and Jesus says, where is he? Where have you laid him? And they said, well, come and see. And then it says, Jesus wept. And the Jews seen him crying. And they said, wow, he must have really loved this guy. And a lot of them said, well, why? Why couldn't he have been here? He opened blind eyes. Couldn't he have kept this guy from dying? And then Jesus says, still groaning, still upset, still hurt, still groaning in himself, went to the grave and it was a cave, and a stone lay upon it. And Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Now, passages like this remind me of the way the Father operates. See, Jesus could easily roll that stone away. I mean, he's Jesus. He can do whatever he wants. He could have just said, "Stone, move away. Lazarus, come out." But no, he tells them to take the stone away. See, Father loves our participation in everything he does. That's what he wants. He wants us to be a part of his kingdom. He wants us to be a working member of his kingdom. Like I said, Jesus could have easily rolled that stone away with just a thought. But he tells them to do it. He wants participation. He wants them to be part of the miracle. And Martha says, "Oh, we don't want to do that. He's been in there 4 days. He probably don't smell too good." And then Jesus reminded her, "Didn't I say to you that if you believe, you're going to see the glory of God? You're going to see a miracle. You're going to see something that's going to blow your mind if you just believe." And then Martha must have believed, because it says then they took the stone away. So again, he wants that participation. He wants us to be a part of the miracles of what he's doing. Even if it's as simple as rolling the stone out of the way. It ain't got to be nothing grand, nothing spectacular. He just wants us to do a little part. Not because he has to have us do a part, because he wants us to be a part. So they took the stone away, and then Jesus does something else amazing in this chapter. He looks up and he says, "Father, thank you for hearing me. And although I know that you always hear me," he said, "I'm saying this because of the people standing by, the people looking on, the people watching what's happening. That's why I'm saying thank you for hearing me, so that they know, that they might believe that you sent me, that you hear me." So, again, Jesus didn't need to thank the Father for hearing him. He knows the Father heard him. He knows whatever he's about to say is going to happen, just like he knows he could have rolled that stone out the way. But he wants us to learn here. He wants us to see, first of all, that he wants our participation by rolling the stone away. And then he wants us to understand that the Father hears him. That's why he said it out loud. "Thank you for hearing me." He knew the Father heard him. And after he said that, he said with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come forth." And as we know, Lazarus came out of the grave, bound in his grave clothes, and Jesus told him to loose him and let him go. And then it says many of the Jews that were there and seen all this, well, they started to believe on him. They were like, well, this dude, he's got to be the Son of God. Who else can do this? I mean, they were finally starting to get it. It was sinking in. They were learning the lesson he was trying to tell them. The Father hears him. But some of them, of course, they had to go their own way and went running back to the Pharisees and said, "Uh-oh, you ain't going to believe what Jesus did. Now he raised somebody from the dead." So the chief priests and the Pharisees called a council together, and they said, "What are we going to do? If he keeps doing this, if he keeps doing all these miracles, and we don't do something, everybody's going to start believing in him. Everybody. And then the Romans are going to come, whoop our butt, and destroy our nation." See, they weren't worried about anything else than their precious little nation, their place, their pride. But even the chief priest, Caiaphas, at the time, I think unbeknownst to himself and what he was saying, he said to him, "You don't know nothing. And you don't even consider that it might be best for us if one should die for the people, rather than have the whole nation perish. And it says he didn't speak this of himself. He prophesied that Jesus should die for the nation. And not only for the nation, but also to gather together every one of the children of God that are scattered abroad. He's going to bring all people unto him. Not just the Jews, not just the Hebrews, everyone. Everyone who believes on him can be saved. And then it says, from that day forth, they took up counsel to put him to death. So they were worried about too many people hearing about what he did and believing on him. And boy, were they right to worry. Look at how far he's come. And look at how many now believe on him. Again, an amazing chapter. I love the book of John. Such an amazing chapter. So much hidden pearls and truths just in this little story alone. I hope it blesses each and every one of you who listen to it. Take it to the Spirit. Think about what Jesus is saying here. Think about what he's doing. Think about how he's talking. He talks about death as sleep. And then he has to talk about his death so those around him can understand. But he talks about what we consider death as sleep. He likes to have our help, even though he don't need it. Wanted us to roll the stone away. He didn't need us to roll the stone away. He thanks the Father for hearing him out loud, although he knows the Father heard him. He didn't have to do that so that the Father would hear him. He did that so that those around him would know that the Father heard him. Just so much to digest in this little chapter alone. Our Savior is an amazing, amazing being. When you come to understand the true nature of our Father and his Son and his Spirit, man, free indeed. I ask that you continue to pray for the children, for our fellow brothers and sisters all around the world, and for those still stumbling around, as Jesus said, in the darkness, because they're walking in night. I pray that someday we can help them come to the light. May the Father bless you. May he keep you. May the Father make his face shine upon you, be gracious unto you, and give you peace. I'll see you next time.